Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You give us the sources, we dive in. Today we're tackling a big one, revisiting a hypothetical clash. Castlevania's Dracula Vlad K versus Arthas Menethil, the Lich King from Warcraft.
That's right. We already figured out, based on our last look, that these two probably wouldn't be teaming up anytime soon. Definitely not compatible.
Exactly. An alliance was pretty much off the table. So now, using the analysis you provided, we're digging into the main event, the final showdown. We'll be exploring their powers, their, weak spots, how they think strategically.
All to try and figure out who might actually win, both in a one-on-one fight and maybe a bigger war. It really gets to the heart of their different styles of being.
Well, Dark Lords.
Let's start with where they came from. Their origins are just worlds apart, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. You look at Dracula starts as Matthias Kronfist.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant guy, scholar, tactician, living in the 11th century. But then the absolute core tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
His wife Elisabetha dies while he's off fighting in the Crusades. That just shatters him.
Yeah, leads him to completely renounce God, right? It's pure despair. Total despair. And it's not just passive grief. He actively seeks power. He goes after the Crimson Stone, manipulates his friend Leon Belmont, tricks the vampire Walter Bernhard, all to absorb Walter's soul and become immortal. His initial drive. Pure vengeance against God.
But it doesn't stop there, tragically. He finds love again with Lisa.
And then loses her too, burned as a witch, unjustly. That just reignites everything, but worse.
So it escalates from this personal rebellion against God to basically declaring war on all humans. He becomes the Dark Lord.
It's this awful cycle, like you said. Each loss just ramps up his destructive power. He's fueled by grief.
Okay, now let's pivot to Arthas. Starts out almost the polar opposite, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Prince Arthas Menethil, Lord Darren's golden boy.
Yeah.
Skilled warrior, devout paladin.
Very protective, initially noble, yeah. But then the Plague of Undeath hits, the Scourge arrives, all orchestrated by the original Lich King, Ner'zhul.
And Arthas just gets more and more desperate trying to stop it.
Exactly, which leads him to that horrific choice at Stratholme, the culling.
Ugh, yeah. That's a massive turning point. You see him sliding into ruthlessness, thinking the ends justify these terrible means.
And that desperation makes him susceptible. He hears about Frostmourne up in Northrend, believes it's the only way to save his people, ignores all the warnings, Uther's pleas.
He grabs the sword.
And boom, soul gone. He becomes Ner'zhul's first Death Knight. A tool.
And then proceeds to just wreak havoc as this soulless champion, unleashes the scourge on his own kingdom, kills his father, King Tyrannus.
Destroys the high elven kingdom of Calthalis, defiles their sunwell just to resurrect the necromancer Kel'Thuzad. It's a horrifying sequence of events.
Until he finally ascends the frozen throne and merges with Ner'zhul's spirit, becoming the Lich King we know.
And the key thing here, like you mentioned, is the manipulation. Ner'zhul was pulling strings, Kil'jaeden, a powerful demon lord, was involved earlier. And those artifacts, Frostmourne, the Helm of Domination, they were forged in the Maw, tools of this entity called the Jailer from the Shadowlands.
So it really wasn't entirely his choice in the same way as Dracula's. Dracula consciously sought power out of vengeance. Arthas was pushed, manipulated, and ultimately had his soul stolen.
Right. Dracula's choices were fueled by grief, leading to this self-made damnation. Arthas's fall comes from that corrupted sense of duty, desperation, and heavy external influence. He lost his agency.
Which speaks to the nature of their transformation, too.
Yeah.
Dracula's feels more intrinsic, tied to vampirism, maybe chaos itself.
Yeah, chaotic seems right. He's very much the architect of his own dark power, whereas the Lich King's power is bound to these specific, powerful artifacts with cosmic origins. He's more like an empowered agent, tragically created.
Does that difference suggest weaknesses? Like maybe Arthas still has some flicker of humanity buried deep down.
Potentially, yeah. Those echoes of Arthas, like the manifestation Matthias Laner, suggest an internal conflict. For Dracula, it's those emotional triggers, especially anything related to Lisa. Reminders can definitely shake him.
Okay, let's talk hardware. Arsenals of evil. What's Dracula packing?
Oh, it's a potent mix. You've got the core vampire stuff first, superhuman strength, speed, durability, regeneration, immortality. The works.
The classics.
Right. But then layered on top is some serious magical ability. He controls elements, especially fire, hellfire, dark inferno, maybe even ice, some sources suggest.
And he commands demons, right?
Oh.
Creatures of the night.
Absolute dominion. Plus a whole spell book of dark magic. Things like demonic Megiddo, which is apparently cataclysmic dark energy, soul steel, blood hydra storm, raining down meteors, destructive beams, you name it.
It's got versatility. And the shape-shifting.
Crucial. He can turn into a bat or a whole swarm, a wolf, mist either for stealth or as a poisonous cloud. He can even teleport using it.
Yeah.
And then there's his true demonic form, which is usually massive and terrifying.
It sounds like it can be hard to pin down.
Definitely. Add teleportation for instant movement, his power of dominance to absorb souls and control monsters, which seems linked to this fundamental force of chaos in his universe.
Chaos. That sounds unpredictable.
Very. And there's dominus hatred, this pillar of light fueled by his rage, potentially draining his own life force. Plus, Castlevania itself. It's not just a castle. It's sentient. It shifts. It's tied to his power in the Chaos realm.
So his power is this blend of vampirism, dark magic, demonic command tied to chaos, and his own intense emotions.
Exactly. It's personal, almost organic to his being.
Okay, contrast that with the Lich King. His power feels more focused.
Very focused. It's all about death, domination, and frost. His primary tool is mastery over death magic and necromancy.
Commanding the Scourge.
Absolute telepathic command, channeled through the Helm of Domination. He directs legions of ghouls, abominations, skeletons, zombies, crypt fiends, gargoyles, the whole undead army.
And he makes powerful undead too, right? Not just cannon fodder.
Oh, yeah. He transforms mortals into powerful death knights like himself or Darien Morgraine. He resurrects mages as liches like Kel'Thuzad. He even reanimates dragons as frostworms, Sindragosa being the prime example.
Chilling, literally, with the frost magic.
Loads of it. Blizzards, encasing enemies in ice, empowering his frostworms. There's this constant deathly chill around him. He also uses runic power, embedding dark magic into his runeblade Frostmourne for empowered attacks. It feels more structured, more martial than Dracula's magic.
And Frostmourne itself.
Yeah.
More than just a sword.
Way more. It steals and imprisons souls. It can even shatter them, sending fragments to the maw. When it's eventually destroyed, all those tormented spirits are released.
Terrifying. Does he have physical prowess too?
Amplified strength, stamina, master swordsman skills, yeah. Plus that iconic Serenite plate armor. But again, much of his unique power comes from the artifacts. Frostmourne for soul manipulation and combat focus, the Helm of Domination for scourge control and immense psychic power. These artifacts also link him to the Shadowlands, specifically the Jailer's influence. He also inherited telepathy and some foresight from Ner'zhul, which Arthas expanded upon.
So Lich King, death, control, frost, channel through artifacts, strategic command. Dracula, chaos, personal magic, shape-shifting, emotional power source.
Pretty much sums it up. Dracula's power feels like an expression of his rage and being tied to chaos. The Lich King's is like wearing a mantle of cosmic authority over death, granted by external forces.
How does this play out in their accomplishments, their reigns of terror?
Well, Dracula's terror is cyclical. He keeps coming back, tied to Castlevania's resurrections. It's an enduring threat over centuries.
More than just fighting Belmonts, though.
Oh, yeah. He unleashes armies on Europe in the 15th century. He manipulates people, constantly kidnapping and corrupting Soleil Belmont, controlling Richter Belmont through his servant shaft and Symphony of the Night.
He even manipulated his own origin story, you mentioned.
Exactly, manipulating Leon and Walter to become a vampire in the first place. And his influence lingers, even inspiring the creation of glyphs from his own essence later on.
And the sheer power displays.
Castlevania teleporting and reconfiguring itself is a big one. In the Netflix series, his grief-fueled war on Wallachia, that initial assault on Targovii, incredibly destructive.
He seemed almost unbeatable there, didn't he?
Until his love for Alucard made him hesitate. That emotional vulnerability. But power-wise, he could overwhelm Trevor, Sifa, and Alucard combined. In the games, demonic Megiddo is talked about as world-ending. He even turns the Moonblood red at one point.
So, chaotic evil, driven by personal loss, using corruption and manipulation, enduring through cycles, often localized, but tensely destructive.
Compare that to the Lich King's reign. It's methodical conquest. The scourging of Lordaeron wasn't just random destruction. It was a campaign that left the kingdom desolate. The Plague Lands.
Killing his own father, marching on the elves.
Its conquest of Qualthalis, raising Silvermoon, defiling the Sunwell for Kel'Thuzad's resurrection. Its brutal efficiency. He dominates Northrend, makes Icecrown Citadel his fortress, raises the ancient dragon Sindragosa.
He shows up personally sometimes too, right? Like at the Wrathgate.
Yeah, he intervenes directly, kills the orc warrior Dranosh Sarfang, though that ended up being a tactical setback because of the Forsaken's plague attack. He also defeated major figures like Uther, Illidan Stormrage, Kael'thai's Sunstrider, and nearly wiped out the combined Horde and Alliance forces at Icecrown.
So his legacy is more about building this vast undead empire through calculated domination, a dark sovereign.
Exactly. It's about chaotic outbursts and more about a chilling vision for a world united in death under his absolute control.
Their leadership styles reflect that difference, too. Dracula's more reclusive.
Often, yeah. He has powerful servants, lieutenants, and his sentient castle doing a lot of the work. The Lich King is the undisputed telepathic commander-in-chief of the Scourge, direct control via the helm.
Strategically, Dracula seems like the long-game manipulator, while the Lich King is the grand strategist, the military commander.
That feels right. Dracula plans across generations. The Lich King plans campaigns. It shapes the nature of their evil Dracula's chaotic personal vengeance versus the Lich King's cold, calculated, almost lawful evil, if undead tyranny counts as lawful. Total domination versus cyclical destruction.
Okay, but even these guys say Dracula.
The big one is the Vampire Killer Whip. It's specifically designed, sacred, alchemical, wholly attuned to destroy vampires and dark beings, the Belmont family weapon.
Holy stuff in general.
Generally, yes. Holy artifacts, holy water, crosses, sanctified magic can harm him, but its effectiveness seems variable. Depends on the power of the item, the wielder's faith.
What about sunlight, the classic vampire weakness?
It's inconsistent in Castlevania lore. Sometimes it seems lethal, like in Portrait of Ruin. Other times, like the Netflix show, he seems pretty resistant or maybe immune. It might depend on his current power level or specific circumstances.
So, not a guaranteed kill.
Not always. And defeating him permanently often involves more than just beating him up. Rituals, destroying Castlevania, severing his link to chaos, maybe targeting the Crimson Stone that started it all.
And the emotional side? His love for Lisa and Alucard.
That's a huge vulnerability. Reminders can cause him to hesitate, lose his will, like we saw in the show, though his grief-fueled rage can also make him reckless, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
So his weaknesses are a mix. Traditional vampire stuff, specific lore items, and deep emotional scars.
Exactly. You need to understand his whole story to really take him down.
How about the Lich King? What are his Achilles' heels?
They feel more defined, tied directly to his power source and nature. The light is a major one. Holy energy is anathema to him. Potent holy power, like from Tyrion Fordring wielding the Ashbringer, or consecrated ground like Light's Hope Chapel, can repel or seriously harm him.
And Frostmourne.
Destroying Frostmourne was key to his defeat in Warcraft. When it shattered, the souls trapped inside were released, and they actually turned on him, overwhelming him for a moment.
What about that buried humanity, the Arthas part?
It's there. That internal conflict, the remnants of Arthas' spirit, Ner'zhul's influence. It creates a potential instability. When Frostmourne shattered, Arthas' original spirit seemed to surface briefly before dying. But it wasn't something heroes could easily exploit during his reign.
So less of a tactical weakness during the fight itself.
Pretty much. The other big one is the Helm of Domination. It's the linchpin for Scourge control. If it's destroyed or removed, his command breaks. We saw that happen later with Sylvanas and Bolvar Fordragon. Destroying it also apparently tears the veil to the Shadowlands.
So his weaknesses are tied to his artifacts, his undead nature, and the cosmic forces involved. Less emotional, more mechanical, or power source related.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Dracula's emotional triggers seem more exploitable, potentially through psychological tactics. Defeating him often feels like addressing the root of his curse, his connection to chaos.
Whereas with the Lich King, the strategy seems clearer. Hit it with light, break his toys, Frostmourne, and the helm.
Exactly. Dismantle the apparatus of his power.
All right. The moment of truth. Hypothetical fight club. Let's start one-on-one. Neutral ground. Peak power for both. Who has the edge?
Okay, so Dracula brings that insane magical versatility, fire, darkness, soul magic, maybe meteors. Shapeshifting gives him mobility, evasion, teleportation for quick repositioning. Probably faster, more agile.
Lich King counters with Frostmourne. That soul steel is terrifying. He's heavily armored, physically resilient, devastating area of effect, frost, magic for control. Master Swordsman. His power feels more focused, maybe more potent in a direct clash.
The absolute core question, I think, is the soul battle. Can Frostmourne, born from the Maw, actually dominate Dracula's ancient, chaos-infused soul? We don't know how those different cosmic powers interact.
Could Dracula's soul-stealing or dominance powers affect the Lich King or the souls in Frostmourne?
Another huge unknown. Then there's the practical stuff. Can Dracula's magic punch through the Lich King's armor and frost defenses? Can Dracula use his speed and teleportation to see out of Frostmourne's reach and avoid getting locked down by frost spells?
Necromancy probably isn't a big factor in a duel, right? Not enough bodies around immediately.
Less likely to be decisive, yeah. It's more about that raw power versus focused power. magic versus martial skill, mobility versus control, and that central soul question.
Okay, what if we scale it up? Army versus army. Dracula's forces versus the Scourge.
Now it gets really interesting. Dracula commands a diverse bunch. Powerful demons, night creatures, maybe some elite vampire lieutenants, maybe human cultists, and Castlevania itself as this mobile, chaotic fortress. Individually strong, perhaps, but maybe not as numerous.
Against the Scourge, which is endless.
It's seemingly endless, yeah. Ghouls, skeletons, abominations, death knights, liches, frostworms. A massive, disciplined, undead horde under the Lich King's absolute instant telepathic command via the helm, and they have Icecrown Citadel as their base.
So strategy-wise, it's the Scourge's sheer numbers and attrition versus Dracula's potentially more powerful elite units.
That's a big part of it. And the Scourge has that horrifying advantage. They can raise their fallen enemies as new soldiers. Every casualty on Dracula's side potentially strengthens the Lich King's army.
That's a huge logistical advantage for the undead.
Massive. Command and control is another factor. The Lich King's centralized telepathic command versus Dracula's likely more decentralized network. And fortress versus fortress. Castlevania's chaotic, shifting defense against Icecrown's more static, heavily fortified defenses.
So putting it all together, who do you think takes it? Duel first.
It's tough, but in a one-on-one, I might give a slight edge to Dracula. His magical versatility, shape-shifting teleportation. It gives him options. And the potential resilience of his chaos-linked soul against Frostmourne is a big factor. If he can avoid getting tagged directly by the Blade's soul magic and utilize his full arsenal, he might just overwhelm the Lich King.
Okay, slight edge Dracula in a duel. What about the war?
In a war of armies, I think the Lich King probably takes it. The sheer overwhelming numbers of the Scourge, their ability to replenish ranks from the fallen, and that unified telepathic command. It's just built for a war of attrition. Dracula's forces, however powerful individually, likely get ground down eventually.
So Dracula's chaotic magic and potentially stronger soul might win the personal battle.
Possibly.
But the Lich King's relentless, organized tide of undeath wins the war.
That feels like the most probable outcome, based on everything we've discussed. Dracula's power is immense, but personal and chaotic. The Lich King's power is systematic, geared towards total conquest and propagation.
It really highlights the contrast, doesn't it? Two iconic dark lords, but so different in how they got there, what they wield, and what their evil is.
Absolutely. Dracula, the embodiment of grief turned into chaotic, cyclical vengeance. The Lich King, the symbol of corrupted nobility, turned into cold, calculated tyranny, an agent of a larger, darker force.
Leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Which form of darkness is ultimately more dangerous? That wild, unpredictable power born from rage?
Or the absolute chilling control of a silent, undying, and ever-expanding legion. Something to definitely chew on.
Indeed. Well, that was a deep dive into darkness. Thanks for exploring this epic matchup with us. Join us next time for another deep dive.